It used to be in healthcare travel that a lot of people had side hustles. It actually was what seemed to bridge the gap between paycheck to paycheck sometimes, maybe even having those awkward times when you were found yourself without a job. This was kind of a norm back a few years ago. Things have changed a little bit now, but we're going to talk about side hustles this week because I still think at some point it still has meaning. There's still some value to this, and it's just some things that a lot of travelers still do, even to make more money than you guys are already making right now. We're going to talk about side hustles on this week's edition of Travel Evolved. It's Travel Evolved. I am Mark Holloway, episode 44, Side Hustles. When we put this one down, and again, this was about a year ago. This one went up. I very distinctly remember saying, I don't know if we should do an episode on side hustles, until maybe toward, a couple of years from now. And I'm not trying to be an I told you so, but I was right about one thing. Maybe it's the only thing I've been right about for a while. I did put on record a long time ago that I felt that pay rates were going to stay high for a really long time. And I still believe that. I don't think they're ever going to go back to what they were in 2019. I mean, never say never. You never really know what our economy is going to do, what supply and demand is going to do. But there's a lot of things that have happened since I made that prediction well over a year ago, almost 2 years ago, where I said this is going to be the new norm, where it's going to be that, they're not going to sustain where they are right now. But they aren't going to drop to a point, I actually think I said somewhere around 15 to 20% higher than what they were, will be, my opinion, as low as it may go, for at least the decent near future, which is really great news for all of you that are healthcare traveling professionals or thinking about becoming one. It's lucrative. There's a lot of money to be made out there right now, and I just don't see that's going to end. And a couple of things I'll point out to. I said back in the episode we did with those guests where I talked about the vaccine mandates, I said, regardless of where on the fence you lay as far as mandating vaccines, I said it's causing what was already a shortage in healthcare providing, in healthcare staffing, I should say, with most specialties, allied nursing. This is going to make it worse no matter what. This is not going to be a good thing for the general public, people like myself. It may not necessarily be a good thing for travelers. I said, be careful what you wish for. Yeah, it's going to keep the rates up, but you might be earning, as I've said before many times on Travel Evolved, every single penny of this thing. And I think that's what you guys are experiencing right now. Many people are really getting fried out there. Go back and listen to our episode about traveler burnout. I mean, it's real. Money is great, but man, you get to a point where you're getting fried. And I can attest to that right now. It is, I've never been busier in my life. I've never worked harder than I am right now my entire life. And I'm I think, towards the twilight of my career. I mean, I certainly don't have as much to go as I God, I hope not, as where I've come. But I've never worked harder. I've never worked longer hours, more work, but I've never had more fun than I've had, especially in the last 6 months. Really and truly, it's just a crazy time in the industry. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about side hustles, because it does feel a little inappropriate because, you're making so much money. A lot of people go, I don't need a side hustle. I just need to focus on my work, which is true. And we'll talk about that toward the end of this episode. But side hustles it's always out there. There's always opportunity for many people who choose to make some additional income if you actually have the time. it feels to me like there, and it seems to me, and I can see it every day, that there are less and less of these, 48-hour type, opportunities. I'm really not seeing very many of those at all. Certainly not the 60 hours we were seeing a year ago. A lot of that's just gone completely by the wayside. So, gone, I think, are the days where you're just, trying to get by to your next, 8 or 9 shifts in a row to get a couple days break for many of you. So, there is a little bit of time to do some side hustling. And it's just kind of unique because, like I said, I think that with the way the industry is right now, we're gonna talk a little bit about the industry toward the end of this episode. With the way the industry is right now, well, let me put it this way. I think there's always ways. You can always make more money if you want to. You can always do things on the side. If you're that kind of person that you just, 3 shifts, if you're a 12-hour type person, 3 shifts a week is not enough. There is opportunity out there. So first of all, this was never really this is not a unique thing. This is not something that's new. This has been happening in at least travel nursing, which most of you know is where I've got my teeth sharpened on for 22 years. Has been mostly in the nursing side of things. This has not been a unique thing. I mean, I've got people that, took 2 assignments. Back in the day, that was not really considered a no-no. There were people who would go to bigger cities and try to coordinate 2 separate assignments and work 6 days a week. Or maybe, try every once in a while they'd cut loose of the other one, so maybe 5 or 6 days a week. But that was pretty common back when I first got in this industry. It was like, what? I remember that it was almost as difficult to find that as it was to find the people that traveled together, that wanted the assignment at the same location or whatever. That was another puzzle you had to put together. And it was relatively common. And there's a lot of people out there going, really? And the answer is, yeah, it really was. There was a ton of folks that liked to piggyback assignments. And so, I mean, that's just one of those. I mean, I guess I would call that a side hustle. It's not really a side hustle. It's just hustle, right? There's just 2 different jobs that you're doing all at the same time. I just call that crazy and hustling. But a lot of travelers have, I guess my point being that I'm trying to make here is a lot of travelers have forever. And I think we'll continue to figure out a way to, put a little more extra money in their pocket. I mean, for many of you that do, in fact, only work 3 days a week, and I say only, I didn't mean to sound like that. 3 12-hour shifts is a lot of work. It's darn close to what a normal, I say normal, a normal person, you guys are definitely really abnormal, right? A normal person works in 40 hours, but I don't know a lot of people that can work 12 hours in a row at whatever job they do. You get fried mentally, you get fried. You guys do it all the time. I've worked 20-hour days recently, a lot of 16-hour days. I get it. I mean, but it's been fun. It's kind of different when you're having a great time and you're having fun than when it's just a drag and I got to go to the next one. And besides, what I do is way less serious if I make a mistake than what you guys do. So the mental fatigue and the physical fatigue there's no physical fatigue with what I do, except for I run around a lot because you guys could probably tell I've got a decent amount of energy, so I can't really sit still at a desk. I've got to be moving and walking around. When I have to sit for a long period of time, it drives me nuts. And I'm sure a lot of you guys are the same way. So what I'm getting at is that side hustles has been around for a long time, and I think it's going to continue to be there. There's always ways for you to make money, and I think a lot of people that choose to do side hustles or have kind of kicked tires and thought about it, they take full advantage of it. I'm going to talk about some examples today of side hustles. I mean, there are certainly, the sky's the limit. I can't talk about everything. There are travelers that make jewelry. There are travelers that sell things, used to sell things on eBay. There are people that used to do closeouts. There's a lot of folks that look at, real estate. And I remember talking to a guy many years ago that was house flipping. I'm like, really? He goes, well, yeah, that's what sometimes I have to take longer between assignments because the house isn't done. I'm trying to hurry up because I got 2 mortgage payments now. I mean, really high, crazy, scary stuff like that. There's the sky is absolutely the limit on what you could do in your quote unquote spare time as a traveler. If you have the time, there's ways to make money. Like I said, I've had people that made their own jewelry, would go and collect different, whether it was melting gold literally down to that sort of a detail, to getting stones and putting it all in place. I mean, a lot of you are incredibly creative. And I've seen it, where you guys are posting some of the things that you do online, whether it is jewelry or some other craft that is, painting. I don't call that a craft, but something artistic where you are, selling and making money because you've got that kind of time. So I don't want to shortchange this episode by pointing out the handful of things that I've seen more commonly. What I want to tell you guys is that literally the sky's the limit. If there's something that you enjoy doing and you are good at it and you can make money doing it, I think that's the limit. It just depends upon what kind of spare time you have and your ability to, I guess, potentially turn that second job or that side hustle into something that is actually therapeutic and then something you actually like and actually takes away and makes you stronger as a healthcare traveler than it would be if you didn't have it. Just something to kind of think about. So a couple things. Before I jump into it really with just my examples I came up with, I want to come up with a few examples because I think it's kind of merits talking about. I do want to thank everybody for still subscribing to our channels. We've had a lot of continuing steady growth. I have not been able to keep up with that cadence because, like I said, I've been incredibly busy, and I'm going to really, I always say this, I'm going to do my best I can, but these episodes are going to be when I can do it. Unfortunately, I do have a job, and I do have a bunch of you that I know are already working with us that I have to take care of, but I have to make sure you guys things are going well for you. So I can't be focusing on Travel Evolve when I've got other things going on, but it's becoming challenging for me. I keep saying what I'm going to do is I'm going to knock out 3 or 4 episodes in a row. I just don't seem to have that kind of time, and I've got a great team that's doing a lot of the editing. It's really funny. I can always tell who does the editing based upon just some camera angles and the shortness of the clip. It's just kind of fun for me to think about that. So now I got you guys all paying attention to how often they're clipping back and forth between the cameras, but I can tell who does the editing each time. So let's talk about social media, because this is I'm going to call it a side hustle, but I want to qualify this. I have a lot of friends and people that I know in the industry that are involved in social media, and they are not gaining any financial gains, if you will, from doing their social media. Very few actually are. There have been people, as you guys know, that have created web pages and Facebook groups back when they were first starting out that have made a lot of money with what I would call social media. Nowadays, and I've even got a guest coming up here soon, a few episodes that I know we're going to get on. Social media is really more to help people. There are a few ways to still make it. You have to have a ton of subscribers, and you have to have lots of commercials, and you have to be willing to become almost it has to become almost a full-time job, in my opinion, to really make money at social media. For those of you guys who don't know, I mean, you can make a couple of bucks here and there on social media. Now, you guys notice that we don't advertise. Travel Evolved does not make a penny. You guys should see that. There's no sponsorship. There is nothing you have to pay to be able to listen or to watch us. And I mean, I like that. And I think most people that I talk to are in that same realm. So just because someone's on social media, please do not assume, and I think the opposite is actually true, that they're making any money. Most people that I know, and if not all of them, I don't know if I actually know anybody who's in healthcare that makes money on social media. I'm just trying to think, and I don't believe I do. Everybody that I know does it because they want to help, they have some knowledge, and they want to give that knowledge to you guys, so you have hopefully what is a better experience. Maybe you stick with travel longer, and I think they enjoy it because it's fun, because they have that. Some of them do have a lot of fun with this. But social media is, by the way, an avenue, not necessarily if you're giving advice or doing it like what we're doing here on Travel Evolved, but you can make money on social media. Listen, I've got a son in high school, and he will constantly be happy to pull up a chair and tell everybody how many millions and millions of dollars some of these YouTubers are out there making. I mean, it's real. It is possible. I don't really understand how they make all this money, but they really do. I mean, you get it. They obviously, it has a lot to do with things going viral, and has a lot to do with having people on their page and having some sponsorships and having it direct from different people can attach themselves to those YouTube videos, so that it does generate a really good chunk of revenue. But again, we're talking about a tiny percentage. You have a better chance of probably making it in Hollywood than you do to become a incredibly wealthy YouTuber. And I'll be honest with you, this sounds terrible, but I feel like you actually have to have more talent to be a YouTuber. I mean, anybody can act, but you actually have to be creative, funny, engaging. I mean, all the things that people want to watch and see to be a really huge YouTube type person, and certainly this show is not one like that. We have a incredibly tiny audience compared to what people do, and again, no revenue stream is being made by that. That's the way most people are. But I want to throw out there that social media, if you are knowledgeable about nutrition, about whatever your thing is, and you have enough information, you can actually go out and earn a decent, not probably a living yet, but maybe I shouldn't downplay that, because one of you will prove me wrong, go out and make millions of dollars by having some sort of great YouTube channel or something that's going to work, and I hope you do. But it is you can make some money doing some YouTube. Here's the one I want to really jump into. I want to talk about recruiting for a little while, because I do know there are a lot of you that kind of side hustle in the recruiting realm. I don't have an opinion on this one. I really don't. I think it's interesting, because I think it can taint you a little bit, because all of a sudden you're going to be really pushing the company or companies that you're representing. And by the way, I've had travelers tell me they represent multiple companies. This is a real thing. You guys can go out, and for some companies, they will let you freelance, so to speak, or potentially full commission recruit, which means that while you're talking to your travelers and while you're out there or you're on your downtime, you could actually be saying, hey, listen, I'm a nurse, I'm an allied professional, and I think you should come to work for this company. You can actually become a recruiter for some companies. And it is, in my opinion, one of the biggest, most popular side hustles that there are out there, because I've always said, I think travelers do make the best recruiters, because you guys do understand what it's like out there, and you know the things that you should and shouldn't say to a traveler, because you've heard them from your side of the phone or your side of the text message, and so you can be really good at it. It's and not every agency will let you do that, by the way. So you got to really pick and choose and find an agency that will. But I just will say, I think it is an opportunity for a lot of you to turn your knowledge, and I think your experience and your influence on other people, potentially, to be able to convince them to go to work for the company that you're representing and take assignments through them. It's just a real thing. And if you've got a good company that's behind you, I think it's a decent way for you to pull in some extra bucks for those few companies that do it. And again, I've had people that told me they work for multiple companies. Be careful with that, because I don't think most companies like it if you're representing more than one company. But it's there. What if one company doesn't have a position, the other company does? You could kind of double dip, so to speak, your side hustle. I don't know. It is. I think you have to be a little bit careful. The one thing I'll warn anybody that wants to stay as a healthcare professional that travels and also become a recruiter, I do think two things I'll say. First of all, it does help you to understand this side of the industry. When you're actually experiencing what it's like from an agency standpoint, it probably does help you to hear those things from your own agency that sometimes aren't always good news or are tough conversations to have. You kind of get it more because you see the number side. I think going along with that, it does bring a potentially negative thing, because you also will see very quickly how you can't always be, what's what I want to say? I want to be so careful with this. You cannot always be forthright with your fellow traveler, because that's unfortunately the job of a recruiter, is sometimes hiding the bad, highlighting the good, and kind of, it's a sales job, guys. It is. So when you're talking to your friends, your constituents, your counterparts, you will quickly see there are times when you find yourself, if you're 100% honest as a recruiter, you're going to not necessarily get all the business. So you begin to walk that fine line. So just kind of be aware that that's real. I think the more ethical the company is that you're working for, the more ethical you are, the less that line becomes blurred. But do know that there is a point where you're going to find yourself convincing one of your friends to take an assignment with your company, and you may not think it might really be in their best interest. That's just recruiting, guys. That's recruiting 101. So that's what recruiters do every single day. They're talking you into the job they have because they want you to go to work for them. You're going to find yourself in that very same slippery slope and that very same boat. Just know it's there. So, all right. Another big one you guys see a lot out there is the CPR type ACLS, BLS instructor, proctoring person. This was a tough one because it's become, I think, an irritant to you guys. It almost feels like you instantly are like, this person who I thought was my friend is all over there trying to sell, their CPR certification course that they want to put people through. It's hard. It's a tough one. It's almost like you become a multi-level marketing person that's like, hey, I want you to come over to our house. We're having some cocktails. And by the way, we're just going to show this little great idea we have. It's all you're like, it kind of feels like that, I think, on a lot of these pages. I know I run a couple pages and I constantly get people flagging this saying, hey, we don't want this person on the page. Can you get rid of them or mute them or kick them out? And it's always that person that is doing this and the next thing I'm going to talk about or down the road, which is also the insurance thing. But CPR, BLS, PALS, all these different, the certifications and these instructions and these instructors, and I can help you get the NCLEX. I mean, everything. It's a side hustle. It's a tough one because you really do have to work it because there's a ton of you out there that do this. So there's a lot of competition for it. It seems to be a relatively, I don't really understand how their day or their week would work, but I think they probably get people into a course that they do maybe together on Zoom or who knows what they're doing, but they are finding the time to get this done. And I think that it must give them enough income that it makes sense for them to do it. Because I just see so many complaints out there of, this person's all over. And by the way, I see a lot of non-travelers doing this too. People that are jumping into our world who are trying to side hustle their hustle and get this going. So I do see that too. But it is, these different course instructions or proctoring or, help, it's a lot. And it is a side hustle. It's one that used to be kind of unique. And now it feels like everybody wants to do it because, I guess it must be lucrative, right? It must work if that many people want to do it. The insurance thing is kind of like what I was talking about earlier where, the sky's the limit of what you could talk about, but there does seem to be a handful of healthcare professionals that are getting the insurance realm. And more importantly, what I see is the same kind of thing I said earlier where the insurance people get into a Facebook group and they just take it over every day. There's an insurance thing. And those people last about 2 minutes in those groups to get kicked out. But there are some travelers who have gone out and gotten some licenses to be able to actually sell certain kinds of insurance. And I see that. This is no different than what I said. You could make jewelry. You could perform, in a band or a street musician. There's 1,000 ways to make side hustle, but insurance seems to be an avenue that feels like some people are saying, I don't know if it was because when maybe they had a specialty during the pandemic that wasn't as popular, like maybe in the OR, so they decided to go out and get a certification and a series, whatever that's. I don't know what the license is for insurance, but they're still doing it because I see them every so often, and I can see that they're in some cases are an RN or a physical therapist, and they're also selling insurance. Like, where did that come from? But it's a side hustle, to say the least. It's no different than, in my opinion, it's just a more lucrative way than it is to, going out and waiting tables, which used to be, by the way, waiting tables, bartending, used to be one of the biggest side hustles that nobody ever talked about. And I had a lot of travelers, maybe a decade ago, used to tell me, I do it all the time. I have a couple of places I'll go and I'll jump behind the bar for a night or two. I'm already on my feet. I'm used to that. It gets me away from the whatever. I'm like, wow, that's kind of a cool idea. They would go into a restaurant or an area where they're doing a travel summit and say, hey, listen, I'm here for 3 months. If you need somebody, help, if you need some bridging the gap or maybe some seasonal stuff, they used to do it. So bartending and waiting tables was a pretty big side hustle that nobody ever seemed to really talk about. It's almost kind of like being, the next thing I wrote down was like, the fix it or the handy man, handy woman thing. We see that a lot where I see it a lot with spouses of travelers that they'll go and take odd jobs here and there, especially if they're potentially retired or semi-retired. But I have seen quite a few side hustles in my time where somebody who is handy, whether it's working on cars or motorcycles and they're a mechanic, or they've got they can just build a deck, or they can help you with your your electric work, which I will do. But plumbing, I'll leave that for the experts. Gas lines, leave that for the experts. Those are some really, really good side hustles that a lot of people still do, where they're able to, especially nowadays with apps and with the internet, where you can jump onto all these different home sites that have people local that will help you, and you can get ratings on them. I think it makes sense, especially if it travels with you. So those are great. Along with kind of insurance, I wrote down bookkeeping. I've seen that before recently, where I've seen a number of travelers that kind of took a step back from healthcare and actually got into some accounting. So they actually didn't go out and get CPA degrees, but they actually were looking and doing some bookkeeping, helping some people with some financial stuff. it's a great kind of way if you've got the time. If you can jump into somebody's books, a small company or small business books, in your off hours, on your days off, and it's not like an everyday, all day kind of thing. If you've got that kind of book accounting sense, you can open up a small bookkeeping business, and you can do that from anywhere on the road. And that's a lot of travelers. I'm not coming up with this stuff. Travelers have. I'm just telling you what they've also done. One that I really like a lot, I put it down here. It's not a side hustle. It's volunteering. I've seen this a lot lately, especially, and I can't applaud you guys enough. I've seen people that have the time, when you have the time, making some really good money right now, decide that they're going to go ahead and reinvest in the community, whether it's and volunteer. And the places you can volunteer obviously are almost infinite. It really depends on where your heart is and what you are willing to do and what you have time for. But volunteering, I think, it's not a side hustle, so let me stop by saying it is a side hustle, because it really isn't. But it's an amazingly great way for you to meet people, to get involved in the community that you're in, not just go back and sit in your Airbnb or your hotel or your apartment. Actually get out there and do something that I think is good. And a lot more of you are doing that, which I just applaud. I mean, you guys are already serving the public in one way, shape, or form. And then to go out and actually volunteer and whether it's Big Brothers, Big Sisters, or just anything, I think it's remarkable, and I applaud those of you that are doing it. Even if you only do it one day a week, one day a month, anything I think you can do is, I've volunteered before. It's really rewarding, and I think it gets you kind of involved, right? If you're just going back to your place and you're one of these folks that just decides, I don't really want to go out to happy hour, I don't want to go and socialize, I'm trying to be healthy, maybe I don't want to go out and have dinner, but I do want to meet some folks. Here's a great way to do it. Absolutely non-side hustle related. So at any rate, here's what I want to say, and I really wanted to kind of trick you guys a little bit in this episode. I think side hustles right now, if I'm a traveler, my side hustle, and I went through this whole exercise just to prove one point, and that point is I'm going to invest my side hustle in myself. I'm going to go out and become a better and better traveler. I think personally, the opportunity costs of missing the boat by going out, and I don't care if you're performing in a band or you are, waiting tables, you could be investing in your own career by learning and educating yourself from things like Travel Evolved and from your peers. And I think right now more than ever, that's where I'd be spending my side hustle time. I wouldn't be out there trying to make a couple of bucks trying to figure out how to, pad my weekly income. I'd be saying, this next assignment, I'm going to do better. I'm going to educate myself. I'm going to make sure I'm choosing a company that pays me a ton of money for the same assignment that 300 companies have. I'm going to make sure they're paying me properly for hours 36 to 40, properly for my overtime. I'm going to compare pay packages with multiple companies. I'm going to get really, really good at this travel game, as I like to call it. And to me, that should be your side hustle. All the things I just mentioned, great, fine and dandy, but you realize right now especially, the income earning potential is so much higher on travel assignments that I don't know why you would spend time going out and doing a CPR course or proctoring people when you could be making literally 30-40% more income on every single assignment by being a better, more evolved traveler. So I hope I said that right. That's the whole episode. I said, really, am I doing this episode right now? Because I really think what people should be doing is investing in themselves and becoming, their side hustle should become being better at what you guys do. And I still believe that. I always will believe that. And maybe there will be a time when the rates aren't quite so lucrative and quite so insane that you do, it does make more sense to go out and make some money elsewhere. But right now, that's, in my personal opinion, that's not what I would be doing. I would be focusing on capitalizing on the current situation, the status quo that's happening right now in healthcare travel, and I would be taking full advantage of it. And that's just me, because I'm kind of what's the word I want to look to say? I don't want to say capitalist, but I'm kind of I can't even think of the word. I'm going to take advantage of the situation that's presented to me at the time it's presented to me. There is a word for that. It's absolutely escaping me. 3 or 4 of you just said it out loud to yourself, and I can't hear you, so there you go. The industry currently, I want to mention this at the end of this episode, kind of where we are in this industry. This industry is right now, it's still wonderfully great right now. I said this a year ago. I said, there's going to be something. What I didn't know a year ago, by the way, and I want to qualify this. I mean, I can guess pretty well at some things, but I did not guess that hospitals would force and mandate a vaccine. That's the one thing I didn't know. And when they did that, I made a prediction based upon that episode. I said it's actually going to continue this process. When I made the prediction that we were going to be in this high-paying thing for a long time, I didn't know that was going to be what was going to be part of the catalyst to make it so that there was going to be a bunch of people that left the industry and the supply would be greatly reduced, which is what I believe we're experiencing right now. We're experiencing less and less people in healthcare in general, and so the opportunity is great. And I don't know how long it takes people to, become strong PTAs, to become, strong, speech therapists, become strong RNs. I mean, you have to go to school for a lot of this. It takes some time. So we're gonna be in this little vacuum, I think, for quite a while. So I think it's an amazingly strong time. The bill rates are still incredibly high. As the release of this episode, excuse me, what I'm not seeing in most parts of the country is that the bill rates are dropping. Yeah, they are in certain areas. Florida's definitely dropping, and I think it has a lot to do with seasonality and who knows. There are certain parts of the country where the ridiculously high rates are gone, but what's replaced those are really, really strong, wonderful rates still. And take Florida, for example. Like I said to somebody today, there's no state taxes there. They're still in Florida, and there's still a whole bunch of areas that are coastal, and some places that aren't coastal are still wonderful. It's a great place to go still. Is it making $4,000 a week? No, not that I'm seeing. And sometimes it's not even making $3,000. It's right around there, but it's not making it. It's dropped $1,000 since at least the first of the year, for sure. And it's continued to stay that way. Now, what I'm not saying is it's not plummeting down where you're making $1,700 a week like it used to be 3 years ago. It's still close to or around $3,000, or I guess for some companies, maybe $2,500, $2,700 a week. It is a great place still to go to. So the rates are still incredibly high. The bill rates are still incredibly high. The supply and demand has absolutely changed the curve for sure. I think what we're experiencing right now, this episode will probably be released, I believe, in sometime in early to mid-March. I can't even tell when they're going to release it, but seasonality is coming into play right now. We're seeing that again, like we used to do every year, where the southern warmer states with the high census are trying to figure out how long it's going to be until the weather changes and they're not going to need a traveler down there as much, and the population will in fact spread out, which means the travel nursing will also spread out. So it's kind of a unique time. I think a lot has to do with that right now. But it is still, we're still seeing rates that are double what they were, bill rates I should say, double what they were in 2019. That's a fact across the board. And many, and we're still booking, I think other people, I'm sure other companies are too, at ridiculous, $195 bill rates, $195 bill rates last week. That's a really high bill rate, which means it should be a really, really high pay rate, which is the last thing I want to kind of talk about, and that is that agency greed seems to be getting completely out of control. It's going to be really interesting to see, and I'm going to make this other prediction. There are agencies that got into this business when the pandemic hit and COVID took off. There are also a lot of agencies that changed their business. I know for sure because you guys send me contracts every day for bill rates that I can see because I have the contract too. The amount of padding that the agency's margins have gone to, I really believe that it's close to 30% right now, up from 26%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's hundreds of dollars a week out of every traveler's pocket. That's kind of what I'm seeing. I can't give you a definitive number, but it looks to me like most of the agreements that you guys are sharing with me are somewhere over 29% margins on the top end margin for a company. That's big. That's up, like I said, almost 4% over what it was a couple of years ago. And I always felt agencies were making a ton of money. The average agency used to make around 26. I really believe in my heart of hearts it's really close to 30 at this point. And some of the big companies have increased that higher. So agency greed's gotten kind of ridiculous. I think the reason for that is that a lot of you travelers have become blinded, so to speak, on the numbers. You're so giddy with how much money you're making that you kind of forgot to think about how much money is the pie worth and how much is that, therefore the agency making. And a lot more of you have done the thing that drives me the most nuts in this industry, and says, I don't care what the agency is making as long as I'm making my $4,000. Really? Because you're working next to somebody that's making close to $5,000 and that doesn't bother you at all? For some of you, it doesn't. Some of you, it's just like, I just care about what I'm making. And that means you don't care about what the agency's making. If you only care about what you're making, it also should mean you don't care what somebody else is making. You can't not care about what the agency's making if you also, and then you yet care if someone else is making more money than you that's working your same unit, your same shift. Does that make sense? I hope it does. You should care. Agency greed has gotten kind of crazy. So what I wanted to say was, I said, there's a lot of people that are getting in this business or have gotten in this business very recently. There's a lot of agencies that have changed their business model. It's going to be really, really difficult for them to hide those margins as the rates slowly or rapidly begin to kind of come down to earth. I don't know if they're going to come back to what they were. I don't think they are. I said 20% potentially higher, but they will come down. I believe that. I don't know when. I'm just guessing here and spitballing. But as they start to reduce and things normalize a little bit more than what they are, some of these agencies are going to really struggle with the personnel they've hired, the kind of money they're used to making, and of course the money that they're used to giving their shareholders, themselves, and spending based upon these really, really lucrative times for what would be both travelers and agencies. So it's going to be really fascinating to me to see what happens, I guess, in the next 2 years, as far as the number of agencies that are here now that won't be here tomorrow, and just the shifts and the changes that many of them are going to have to make in order to to keep up with the competition and the pay rates that are going to be out there. So it's going to be kind of fun to watch, I think. Like I said, I'm having more fun right now than I've ever had in 22 years in this industry. This is, I mean, it really is. This is a fun time. It's fun. It's been very rewarding. A lot of really good feel-good stories out there with people that are wanting to travel that don't have a huge amount of experience, maybe people that got out of traveling for a while or switched specialties. There's just there's a lot to be thankful for out there right now, and I think a lot of you guys are very thankful. So enjoy it. Enjoy this time. Enjoy this paycheck you're going to get this week, the one you got last week. Put some money aside. Don't spend it all, and enjoy the time that we have right now, because it's the best I've seen in 22 years. It's the best I've seen for you guys, and I hope it stays. And I hope you don't have to go back to getting a side hustle going in order to make sure that you can justify your life on the road. That's the whole point, is that you shouldn't have to. So side hustles. Like I said, kind of a weird episode because I just don't know if you should be doing them right now. But if this episode stands the test of time in 2, 3, 4 years on the road, there could be some value for it. So there, I accomplished the side hustle episode 44, which I said, do we really want to do it? And we did it. So guys, as always, I appreciate you tuning in, and I will catch you next time on Travel Evolved.